Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about a mini PC by GEEKOM. Now GEEKOM, if you're not familiar with them, they make a lot of small form factor PCs. PCs that typically incorporate laptop components in a small form factor, but still kind of gives us the experience of a desktop experience on the go. This is something that you can probably even take with you in your backpack when you're traveling, connect it to a hotel monitor or TV, and of course turn it into an entertainment center or your personal PC on the go. This is my review of the IT11 from GEEKOM, so let's not waste any time. Let me show you what makes this so special. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So in the box, we get pretty much everything that you need. You get the PC itself, we have the power supply that is provided with us as well, an HDMI male-to-male cable to provide us connectivity to a TV or a monitor, very nice. And last but not least, we also have a VSAM mount that also is available for the ability of mounting this on the back of a monitor or on the back of something that is VSAM mountable. The reason why this is a unique experience is because of the small form factor of this PC and the lightweightness of this. It's actually very easily mounted behind the TV and you would never even know that it's there. The beautiful thing about it is we have enough I/O and of course wireless connectivity, not only to be able to get internet connected to it, but also be able to configure it and use it with, let's say, a wireless keyboard and mouse, as I was going to show you guys in a little bit. But the overall experience that we're getting here is pretty much a laptop experience in a more of a compact solution. Now, when we're talking about the actual CPU, this is the 11th gen Intel Core i7-1195G7. It's a mobile processor that's provided for us here with the Intel Iris Xe graphics card. So integrated graphics by Intel, and of course the CPU as well by Intel. There's different configuration, an i7 and an i5. Now the RAM configuration that we have in here starts with 16 gigs of onboard RAM, all the way up, expandable up to 64 gigs. The one we have here is a 32 gig DDR4, basically dual channel RAM. The SSD that we have in here is an M.2 SATA that's going up basically up to 1 terabyte, although you can go all the way to 2 terabytes. And one of the main benefits here is the fact that we can expand and add a SATA hard drive, like a 2.5-inch SATA drive, that provides us the ability of expanding the storage to up to another 2 terabytes. Really, really nice. 3 USB 3.2 ports, Gen 2 ports, 2 USB 4.0 Gen port, obviously with super speed, 1 SD card reader, a 3.5mm headphone jack, of course, for connectivity, an RJ45, RJ45 gigabit Ethernet in here, HDMI 2.0 port, supporting up to 8K and 4K 60. Mini display port, of course, for those connectivity options. Last but not least, a DC port, and of course the power button that we have at the ability of just turning it on. We have Windows 11 Pro installed in here and updated, of course, to the latest software update, Bluetooth 5.2, and of course Wi-Fi 6 compatibility in here, and all of the different experiences that you can imagine. The main thing about this PC is that, again, everything is compact and everything is built into this. Now, this technically does not have the same power consumption or power requirement as a laptop, and this is why the power brick is not as big. And also that provides us the ability of having this to be more of a quiet experience with not as much, well, I'll probably say it was not as much sound from a fan. There are fans in here and it does sometimes pick up, but it is so faint and it actually has a lot of air vent cooling in here. As I showed you guys with the disassembly, it's actually pretty simple. You just unscrew the bottom 4 feet on the actual board and it's easily opened. Now, the Kensington lock that we have in here is going to be our guide to know exactly how to put it back. But it's pretty straightforward. Just know that there is a ribbon in there so that you don't damage that. That's going to be the ribbon connecting the SSD or the 2.5-inch SSD drive that you're able to basically mount in here. There's a power and connection. Everything is ready. Literally all you have to do is plug it in, screw it in, put it back in there, and you're ready to go. And you just expanded the storage. And as far as the RAM configuration, it is a dual channel RAM configuration. So you're always going to need to make sure that you're matching the pair. So if you have 2 8s, that gets you the 16, or like I have 2 16s, gets us 32. And of course, we're able to go to 64 if you want to be able to do 232 gigabytes. If you're going to upgrade, just remember to buy them in pairs. So that's going to be the main requirement there. Now, the internal M.2 SATA comes pre-configured as a 1 terabyte with Windows 11 Pro. You are able to obviously upgrade that to 2 terabytes if you want to be able to do so. You will need to basically clone the drive using a separate PC to be able to get that experience. But once we get all of that out of there, let's talk about a little bit about what is this system intended for. So first and foremost, I will say it is running an i7 processor, and even though it's a laptop grade processor, it's still powerful enough to be able to handle your daily activities. So from content creation, or basically let's say management, so browsing, editing, document, going on the internet, doing everything that you want, this is going to be a screamer. There's no question. 32 gigabytes of RAM here is going to be more than enough, and the internal SSD is fast enough to provide us that desktop experience on the fly. And that's what really makes this unique. You can connect this to a TV, to a monitor, mount it on the back of that TV or monitor, and get that basically all-in-one type of a PC experience. Really easy and very, very simple. The mountable option that we get on the back with the VESA mount that just mounts as long as your TV has a VESA mount on the back that is not mounted, meaning your TV is not mounted to the wall using that VESA mount, then you're pretty much set and you're easy going. You're not going to have any problem setting it up. So from that general experience for the last couple of weeks, I've been using it, and I've traveled with it to New York. I connected to the TVs in the room, and with a USB, well, basically using the dongles that come with the Logitech keyboard and mouse, I was able to basically use this and be able to actually manage myself, do work while I'm on the go without having to pull out the laptop, because I can just sit back and enjoy a much bigger 55, 65-inch TV. And this actually does very well. It does support 4K, and it does support 4K up to 60 frames per second, and it does support technically 8K, although with HDMI 2.0, I don't really feel like this is going to be very much a need for us to go to 8K, but a 4K display, absolutely no issue. I also connected it to an ultra-wide, basically it's kind of like a 1440p display, and I was able to actually use it very nicely. When we talk about performance and where is this going to basically start showing the benefit of having i7 is when we start talking about, how does this do for productivity, content creation and not necessarily just content consumption. For me, I decided to go with something more suited for the profile or the power profile that we have in here. It's a mobile processor. It's also still sitting in there in more of a compact solution. So I decided not to go with Premiere to be able to edit my content that I want to be able to produce off of here. I decided to do use what I typically use on my phone, and that is CapCut desktop experience. From importing content, from putting in transitions, overlays, and everything. If you're familiar with CapCut on mobile, this is going to work perfectly for you. And for me, it did not disappoint. I was able to connect my SSD. This was one of my SSDs. I have like a 4 terabyte using the USB 4.0, although it defaults back to 3.2. It ran really nice. I was able to edit straight off the drive, and I was able to export directly into it without any problem. Although I had enough storage internally, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't necessarily filling it up with content. So everything ran off the SSD, and it worked really good. Now, when it came down to gaming, it was pretty straightforward. I installed Steam because that has most of my library of games that I like to play on this. And as you can imagine, I decided to play a few games. I tried playing a couple of things that were definitely demanding. I'll say this. PUBG Mobile, well, not mobile, PUBG desktop experience. And I also tried running Doom Eternals. Overall, they definitely ran. I ran them in 1080p configuration. I wasn't running them in 4K. This is where the XE graphics kind of starts having its limitations of what you can do with it. The processor has enough power, but you need the GPU to leverage the power as well. And at 1080p, overall, the experience of the gaming here was pretty straightforward. As I'm showing you guys right now with a quick example, when I was playing Doom Eternals, I was averaging somewhere between 30 to 60 frames per second and a variable depending on what I was doing. If the scene was moving a lot, it basically averaged around 30 frames per second. And if there's not a lot of things moving on as the beginning of the scene started, it was roughly basically about 50 to 60 frames per second, which is not bad at 1080p resolution. PUBG Mobile, I pretty much kept it at 1080p as well. It played very nicely. It was roughly about 30 to 40 frames per second. It wasn't going to be basically earth-shattering, but from a mobile gaming experience, if I'm traveling and I just want to be able to catch a real, play a real quick game or do something like that, there's not going to be any issues. Internet connectivity will probably be your biggest thing, and this is where I love having Wi-Fi 6 as well as Ethernet, so the gigabit Ethernet on the back. And if you have the ability of going wired, obviously recommendation would be to go there. With the exception of that, if you decide to play games, let's say using GeForce Now or even using Steam, the desktop experience, meaning if you have Steam installed on multiple PCs, let's say a full-fledged GPU-driven desktop experience like I have there, you're able to leverage that and play games streamed over the network. And of course, then this system actually becomes really good for that experience because you're no longer leveraging the hardware built into it, but you're leveraging that GPU, the 4090 that I have sitting in the back there on my desktop will definitely be giving me a much better experience. And because it's streaming over the internet and it's local network at Wi-Fi 6, as well as, again, if you have Ethernet, it works really, really nice. So from that leverage and from that experience, I feel like this is a well-rounded PC. The 32 gig configuration will definitely be the more beneficial for you if you want to be able to create content or play some kind of games on this, as opposed to the 16, because you definitely want to give it enough, I would say, breathing room when you're playing games so that you're not hitting the limit amount of RAM that you have. 32 was definitely the right configuration for me. The 1 terabyte SSD is definitely very good. You're able to augment that with all of the I/O that we have in here. We have an SD card reader, we have USB 3.2, USB 4.0, DisplayPort, HDMI Connectivity is not going to be limited. You can definitely drive multiple displays with this at 4K resolution, but when it comes down to gaming, again, my recommendation is to drop it down to 1080 and then go from there. As you saw there with PUBG as well as Doom, they worked really, really nice. And of course, you're able to install other library games directly from Steam because this is running Windows 11 Pro. So this is essentially a desktop experience, and everything that you're able to install on a laptop or a desktop will work perfectly fine. From Word, Office, all of those applications will work great. You can technically install Premiere and you can technically edit content on it. I just feel like this will not be the experience that you've seen on a desktop. It's going to be hindered, and this is where I feel like something more like maybe a Power Director or even a CapCut, which is what I'm using, works really good and leverages what we have here to the best capabilities so that we get the best experience. So at the end of the day, what do I think about this system? I think this is a very nice system considering the price that you're paying for and what you're getting with it. There's different configurations that GEEKOM provides us the ability of picking from, either basically a 16 gig all the way up to 64 gigs for RAM, 512 gigs of internal storage all the way up to 2 terabytes. And again, we can add our own 2.5 SSD drive there directly into the actual encasing, and it doesn't add any bulk to it. It all fits in directly within the same form factor and footprint. Connectivity will pretty much be the way you normally expect it. If you want to connect via Bluetooth, absolutely no problem. Bluetooth 5.2 is supported here. If you want to be able to connect it via wirelessly, mount it behind your TV and be able to just use this like I'm sharing you guys right now with the experience. I put this on the TV in my bedroom and it was absolutely fantastic. It's a large TV. I can sit all the way on the other side of the room and I still see everything I want to do. And of course I can turn on Netflix, anything that runs in a browser, anything that I want to be able to install will work perfectly fine. So for that reason, I do recommend this for somebody that's looking for that type of a PC experience. It's well-rounded. It's really good for productivity as far as content, not necessarily content creation, but necessarily management, Word doc, editing and doing basically general management type of solutions. If you want to be able to create content, again, there's a solution for you there. I think CapCut is more than enough powerful and it runs smoothly. This is one of the biggest things in there. Although I was importing 4K 60 frames per second, I was able to scrub through that and run resolution or the playback at full resolution without having any problems. And then when I'm producing content at 1080p, it produced it quite quickly actually, as you see there in the example. Especially if you're looking for a small form factor PC that you can take with you or even use in the house on a big TV and sit back and relax on the couch. I want to say thank you very much to GEEKOM for allowing me to check out the IT11. Again, there's different configurations for the system, but this one that I have here, I felt like hit the spot just right. Like and subscribe as usual. Thank you very much for the support, and I'll see you in the next video.